There is a 120-second window inside your brain that, if you do not act inside it, the entire day is already lost. You do not feel it happening. You do not even know it is there. But every single morning, neuroscientists can now measure the exact moment your prefrontal cortex hands the steering wheel to your basal ganglia, and once that handover is complete, the day is no longer yours. It belongs to whichever habit your brain has automated, which for most people is the habit of opening a screen and disappearing. The 2-minute rule is not a productivity trick. It is not a cute piece of advice from a self-help book. It is a hard neurological intervention that uses a specific property of the human brain called activation energy to physically rewire the way your day starts. And if you understand the mechanism in the next 15 minutes, you will never again wake up wondering why you cannot get started. You will know, with surgical precision, exactly which 2 minutes hold your entire future hostage and what to do inside them. Every action you have ever taken in your life, from brushing your teeth to writing a book, requires a specific quantity of mental energy to begin. Scientists call this activation energy, borrowed from chemistry, where a reaction will not start until a threshold of heat is reached. The exact same principle applies to your behavior. The difference between you and someone who runs 5 miles before breakfast is not motivation. It is not discipline, and it is that their brain has lowered the activation energy for that specific action to the point where starting requires almost no internal negotiation. Here is the part that nobody explains. The activation energy for any task is highest in the first 120 seconds. That is the window where your conscious mind is debating, evaluating, predicting, comparing, and looking for an escape route. If you can survive those 120 seconds, the chemistry of the task itself takes over and pulls you forward. If you cannot, you fall back into the default loop, which is whatever your brain has been automating for the last several months. There is a fascinating experiment done at MIT where researchers track the brain activity of subjects performing difficult tasks. The discovery was counterintuitive and important, as the actual difficulty of the task did not produce the most resistance. The transition into the task produced the most resistance. Once subjects had been working for 3 to 4 minutes, brain regions associated with effort and discomfort actually quieted down. The agony was in the doorway, not the room. This is why every adult who has ever existed has had the experience of dreading a workout, finally starting, and then 20 minutes and thinking, "This is fine. Why was I avoiding this?" You are not avoiding the workout. You are avoiding the doorway. The 2-minute rule is a precision tool for getting your body through that doorway before your mind realizes what just happened. Most people have heard a watered-down version of the 2-minute rule. The real version, the one that actually rewires behavior, it has 3 parts that must be obeyed in order. Part 1. Reduce the action to a physical first step. Do not commit to writing a book. Commit to opening the document. Do not commit to running. Commit to lacing the shoes. Do not commit to studying. Commit to opening the textbook to the right page. The first step must be physical, observable, and absurdly small. If your first step takes more than 2 minutes to complete, it is not a first step. It is a second step in disguise. Part 2. Execute without negotiation. From the moment you decide to begin, you have a maximum of 5 seconds before your nervous system pulls in counter-arguments. Decision, action, no debate. Countdown out loud if you have to. The countdown is not a gimmick. It interrupts the verbal loop in your prefrontal cortex that would otherwise list the reasons for delay. You do not need to feel ready. You need to be moving before ready arrives. Part 3. Let the task pull you. Once you have completed the 2-minute first step, do not force yourself to do more. Give yourself full permission to stop. Here is the secret. Almost nobody stops. The activation energy has already been paid. The brain, having now been switched on, will quietly suggest doing a little more. That little more is where the real work happens, and it happens without effort because the doorway is already behind you. There is a second-order effect of the 2-minute rule that most people never reach because they treat it as a single-use tactic. The truth is that the rule is a domino. Every 2-minute start that you successfully execute creates a measurable change in your nervous system called the action signature. The action signature is a temporary state of elevated dopamine and reduced amygdala reactivity that lasts roughly 4 to 6 hours after a completed start. This means that if you successfully begin one meaningful task before 9 in the morning, every other task you attempt that day will require less activation energy than it would have otherwise. You're not just winning the morning, you're paying forward a state of reduced resistance into the entire afternoon. People who appear superhuman in their output are not working harder. They have stacked enough early starts that by noon, their nervous system is running in a different chemical state than yours. Almost everyone who has tried the 2-minute rule and failed has made one of 3 errors, and they all stem from misunderstanding the mechanism. The first error is using the rule on tasks that are already easy to start. Brushing your teeth does not need a 2-minute version. You are wasting the tool on a problem that does not exist. The second error is breaking the rule after the 2 minutes by forcing more. The moment you turn the 2-minute start into a 45-minute commitment, your brain begins to associate the rule with deception, and the activation energy quietly creeps back up next time. You must honor the original 2-minute contract internally, even when you keep going. The third error, and the most common, is using the rule once and expecting transformation. The rule is not a single event. It is a daily lever. Pulled once, it lifts a moment. Pulled every morning for 60 days, it lifts your identity. The same lever applied at the same time every day. So is how a habit moves from negotiated to automatic. Here is what I want you to do before this hour is over. Pick the single task you have been avoiding the longest. Now write down the smallest possible physical first step toward it. Not the task itself, not a plan, not a schedule, the smallest physical action. Then close everything else, count 5 seconds backward, and execute that step. If you do this within 1 hour of finishing this video, you will have already broken a pattern that your brain has been protecting for years. Tell me in the comments what your 2-minute step was. That comment is your handshake with your future self.